Hey everyone, Angus here. I'm at one of the future building location pads on Miss Lynette's bug out property, and today I wanted to touch base on some of the preliminary steps of building with alternative architecture. I consider alternative architecture anything basically that's not your typical stick built or mason block built house. Anything that utilizes maybe some older practices or a more natural, eco-friendly approach. We really enjoy those here at the Bug Out. And so we definitely are going to be utilizing many alternative forms of architecture in our building procedures. One of my favorites would be the rammed earth style of building. I'm quite fond of it for many reasons. These things, when built correctly, are very, very sound structures. They weather storms, they weather fires, they weather gunfire. You know, when you're talking security, the test of time, anything basically that Mother Nature could throw at it, I'm a firm believer that this rammed earth is hands down kind of the best way to go about things. And there's debate on that. There are pros and cons to every style of building, and, everybody also has an opinion. That's just mine. Realistically, our first structure will probably be an earth ship and not a rammed earth, just due to the size of the first structure that we're looking to do. The first structure is actually going to be kind of like a dormitory style housing, to where we have a common lounging and kitchen areas, and then we have some individual setup style dorms to where we could house a larger number of people with that one build. So that's kind of where we're going with our first structure that we'll be able to get out on the ground and actually build. Going into earth ships real quick is the reuse, the upcycle that goes into place whenever you're building with earth ships. They utilize a lot of recycling with tire walls. There's a lot of light passage that takes place through glass work, utilizing used bottles and whatnot. And it's also very creative. From what I understand of it, the greatest thing about an earth ship is that you can kind of really play with it and make it your own thing. They also utilize sustainability. It's kind of one of the greater focuses of the earth ship motto, and the true earth ship motto being that things are sustainably built, and that the structure itself almost creates an ecosystem for growing of fruits and vegetables. A lot of times you'll see on the south facing side, in areas that aren't too hot and sun damaging for plants, they have a lot of south facing greenhouses to utilize that thermal mass that those places create, as well as the UV coming in there to naturally grow, basically have greenhouses as part of your house. They make fully sustainable ecosystems, and that's a really cool feature or design intent with the earth ships. If there's a question or a comment, you guys are interested in something specific, just let us know. We're more than willing to dive into anything. This is just kind of what we're working with right now. Eventually, I'd love to see a cob style house built, maybe some Cire wall or some Aerocrete, or some of those other kind of alternative styles of building. We're definitely interested in looking into. So let us know what you guys think as well in the comment section, please. Again, back to what we were talking about with the rammed earth. We're going into the preliminary testing procedures for rammed earth construction. What rammed earth is it's basically building sedimentary rock walls. Instead of over the course of millennia or eons, you're doing it in a matter of a couple hours. You have forms that are very similar to concrete work, but they're going to be reinforced substantially, because you're going to be putting impact force down onto those walls to smash and compact that into that sedimentary rock. And in doing so, you want to know what kind of soil you're dealing with, because there is a magic ratio for kind of the most ideal rammed earth wall. To start with, the ideal ratio, you're looking like a 70-30 ratio, where you're wanting about a 70% sand gravel mixture with a 30% ratio of what we're going to call clay. And in this context, clay is considered the stabilizing agent. So if you're adding Portland cement or lime or maybe some other calcite or some kind of maybe off the wall stabilizing agent, you're going to be working that number into your 30%. In our application, our percentages, we want about 20% clay in our test, because we're always going to add about 9 to 10% Portland cement. And the reason we're doing that, even though it's not absolutely necessary, is that we just want to not have any doubts in our mind that structurally these are really going to stand the test of time. There is two forms of rammed earth, stabilized and non-stabilized. Stabilized rammed earth is whenever you're adding a stabilizing agent, i.e. Portland cement, lime, again, it's some of those. Non-stabilized is whenever you're using that 70-30 ratio of what all of the world has used in their rammed earth construction for basically all of the existence of rammed earth. And that is a 70% sand and gravel and 30% clay. For example, there are 300-year-old structures in Germany that are used 5 days a week to the public, and they are 7 stories tall. They are constructed of unstabilized rammed earth. Another great one is the Great Wall of China. It's constructed approximately 60% of unstabilized rammed earth. So back to the testing, what I've done is I've gone around the property already, and I've collected a couple of samples from some of the little bit more diverse soil conditions that we have on the property here. First off, whenever you're doing these, whenever you're thinking about building rammed earth and you're starting to look at your soil composition, you want to make sure that you're doing these tests from several different locations, and basically anywhere that you're going to draw the material from, you want to be sampling from. So if you're going to be digging down to excavate the material, you definitely want to make sure that you're including that excavated material in your tests, because it definitely can change as you dig. You're going to want to fill a mason jar, an empty spaghetti jar, a glass jar with a lid, 2/3 of the way full. Now, you're going to want to take and size that material. This is about a 1/2-inch mesh screen. You're going to be, in a perfect world, a little bit smaller than this. I find this to be a pretty good measure. When you're mixing your material, your ideal size is probably a 3/8 minus up to like a 7/16 minus, with no more than 20% of that 70% being gravel. You want about 50 of that to be a sand soil combination there. I just hold the screen over top of the jar. I kick the big stuff off whenever it gets a little full. I make sure that I grab a good sample. And especially if you have varying conditions across your property, you want to make sure and dig down deep if you're going to be excavating in this project, to make sure that you're gathering some accurate samples. So that's pretty close there, and there's no exact science to this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Right here I have a pail of water. That 2/3 full, you're gonna fill to about the full mark of whatever came in it. You want to leave just a small amount of airspace to be able to shake it, because that'll be coming up shortly. Dish soap. Doesn't really matter the kind, there's no rhyme or reason. Just a drop or two. That's a good drop or two. And that helps to stratify the different layers in our jar. So you'll fill your jar the remaining the way up, leaving a little bit of airspace. You'll cap it, and then you're gonna wanna shake this for a good, probably 5 minutes. You might ask, why shake something for so long? And a great example is this jar right here, where it may appear that you have kind of a lot of rock and stuff in there, but really what that is, that lighter stuff, that is a clay that we have native to this area that whenever it's dry actually kind of chunks up and will wad up like small rocks. So you want to make sure and shake that well so that you can dissolve all that clay again to get some accurate readings. Shake and shake and shake. And we'll shake these up, fill them all up, dab of soap, give them a good shake, and then you put them in a cool, dark area. Biggest thing is you want to make sure it's free of disturbances and getting vibrations and being shook around. The reasons you're doing this is as it settles, and you can kind of already start to see in this one, it's going to stratify, and you're going to get layers in your sample jar, and you'll start with your sands and your gravel. You'll move into your topsoil, your clay, and then your black loamy stuff, and then on top you'll have all your organic material. Now that definitely you don't want in there, so you kind of want to pay close attention to that. And if you have too much of that mixed in with your soil content, you're going to definitely want to have to do something to try and screen that off. So definitely kind of always pay attention to them little floaters on top. They are a little important. So yeah, this is the basics of the preliminary testing. You always want to make sure and check with your local government whenever you're doing these. Sometimes these are all the tests that you'll actually have to do in order to be able to build with rammed earth. In our particular case, the soil does have to be tested and certified of the correct contents. So they are going to be looking for that 20% or less of gravel, with the 50% of it being a sand, and then that 30% being a stabilizing content of either a clay slip or a Portland or lime, like I said. I think I've about covered the basics of a soil test. If there's any more questions or comments, please feel free to ask. As always, until next time, guys, take care, be well.